And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times Gentex Multimedia Daily Live Updates. Well, good afternoon today and welcome to this special late edition of Gentex Multimedia Livecast. Today we are celebrating a very special day as we were at the Gandhi statue in Roma Street Parklands on Gandhi Jayanti celebrations and not forgetting Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. Hence the delayed livecast. Well, making news today, Victoria recorded 7 new coronavirus cases as a large household cluster was linked to an outbreak at Melbourne's Chetstown shopping centre. An old local case with no known source identified in New South Wales has pushed back Queensland's border opening now till November. New South Wales recorded 4 new cases in a hotel quarantine today. Restrictions in Queensland will be eased today, with bars allowed to serve standing patrons from 4 p.m. So better head down there at 5. The state recorded 2 new cases today, but both in hotel quarantines. Weddings will be allowed to have dance floors, and gatherings at home will now be expanded to 40 people from 1st of November. Businesses battered by the coronavirus pandemic could be thrown a financial lifeline at next Tuesday's federal budget. We'll bring a very special coverage on that budget through a temporary tax break to enable them to stay afloat until they turn a profit. That will be a much needed move for small businesses. There are now more than 34.1 million coronavirus cases worldwide, according to Johns Hopkins University tally. That's the tally that we follow from here. The global death toll now is 1.01 million. Well, before we get too much into the news for today, the light news for today, let's take a very quick look at what's in store for the rest of the day today weather-wise and what is the outlook for the weekend. With that, let's welcome Dilraj Dillon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 29 degree. Chances of rain are 0%. Brisbane area is mostly sunny, light winds becoming easterly 15 to 25 km per hour in the middle of the day, then becoming light in the evening. Fire danger is high. Sun protection is recommended till 2:50 p.m. UV index is predicted to reach 8, that is very high. Over the weekend, minimum temperature will be 17 and maximum will be 27. Sun protection is recommended from 8 past 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. and UV index is predicted to reach on the weekend, that is very high. On Saturday, Brisbane area will be mostly sunny with 10% chances of rain. Patchy fog can be seen in the west in the early morning. Light winds becoming easterly 15 to 20 km per hour in the middle of the day, then becoming light in the evening. On Sunday, Brisbane area will be partly cloudy with 20% chances of rain. Light winds becoming east to northeasterly 15 to 20 km per hour during the day, then becoming light during the evening. So that's all for the weekend for today. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dilraj, and Yes, it's going to be a good weekend by the looks of it, and as we know, there are quite a few restrictions that will be easing today as well, and of course leading into November we're going to look at a further outlook. But first of all, let's take a look at the headlines for today before we go to the address by our Premier, and then we'll look at the special day that is today, the 2nd of October.
abc.net.au and on ABC iView. Here are the top stories on ABC News. The federal government has pledged to implement all recommendations of the Aged Care Royal Commission on the coronavirus response. 4 out of 6 recommendations are already being worked on. Details of a funding boost for the sector will be made in next Tuesday's budget. New case numbers in Victoria are staying low, with 7 infections recorded overnight, and it brings the 14-day rolling average for metropolitan Melbourne to 12.8. There have been 2 deaths linked to aged care centres. Queensland is to reopen its border to the rest of New South Wales from the 1st of November. That will only happen, though, if New South Wales records no community transmissions for the next 3 weeks. More restrictions are easing in Queensland, with people allowed to stand and drink in bars from 4 o'clock this afternoon. New South Wales Police are investigating allegations of misconduct by the South Sydney Rabbitohs NRL club. An article in the Australian newspaper claims that the club covered up alleged domestic violence and drug use by former star player and current development coach Sam Burgess. Burgess has rejected all the allegations.
So there's the headlines for today. As I mentioned before, that today is a very special day, but before we go into that, let's hear from our Premier about those restrictions and how the borders will be managed with some of the restrictions lifting.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right, so we got everyone? Yeah. Let me know when we're good to go.
I'm good. Make a picture. Good to go.
Okay. Thank you. So, first of all, good morning Queensland, good morning Brisbane. So today I can report that we have 2 cases of COVID, but we are absolutely fine with them because they were in quarantine and the 2 people are in hospital. They were on board a ship, and Dr. Young will explain a little bit more about that. That means we have 6 active cases. Our total number of cases is 1,160. And included in that number is a historical case, which has happened ages ago but has been added to the total, which means we've also had over 5,200 tests in the last 24 hours. Today we're very pleased to be here at Hurston. I think it was about 2 years ago we were turning the sod here on the STARS, which is the Surgical Treatment and Rehabilitation Service. It's due to open next year. I'm getting a sneak peek today with the Deputy Premier, the Minister for Education and the Chief Health Officer. And what this means is it means more beds and more surgeries. That's exactly what we want for Queenslanders and Queensland families. And there will be 5 operating theatres and another 2 operating theatres by June. So this is wonderful news. This is a fantastic precinct, and I'm very pleased that the government has been able to ensure that this happens, and we want to see those more surgeries happen and those extra beds, 182 beds, and it brings together surgery, rehabilitation and outpatient services, which is exactly what families need when we're looking after their health and we're keeping Queenslanders safe. Now, today, some more good news, and we have now put together a roadmap which takes us to the end of the year, and we're going to talk about easing some more restrictions. Now, the reason we can ease the restrictions is because Queenslanders have done a brilliant job. I want to thank all of the families out there, all of Queenslanders, for doing the right thing. Keep up the great work, but just remember too, if you're sick, stay at home and get tested. So what does that mean? So from 4 o'clock this afternoon, in some great news and in breaking news, you will be able to stand up inside and outside, whether it's a cafe, restaurant or a bar, and have a drink. Now, there's only one proviso. We want people to make sure that they are keeping up with their social distancing, but this is something that the communities have been saying to me. I've been travelling this week out at Moranbah, out up to Cairns as well, And I love to see people enjoying the lifestyle, and the only reason we can do this is because Queenslanders have done a great job. And I want to thank Dr Young, because Dr Young has provided us with that health advice which enables us to do that. Secondly, we've made it very clear that our borders have kept us safe. We are looking very closely at New South Wales, and if they do not have any community transmission for 28 days, we said very clearly that at the end of the month we review the plans, and that would mean there may be a possibility of opening up to New South Wales if there is no community transmission. But of course, their health experts are also concerned about some undetected community transmission at the moment. They're about to go into school holidays. So we will be watching that space very carefully, and Dr Young will be watching that space very carefully. In some other good news too, so stage 5 from 1 a.m. on the 1st of November would also mean that gatherings of up to 40 people in homes and public spaces across Queensland, and up to 40 people would be able to dance at weddings. We're not going to choose those 40 people. The weddings themselves will have to choose those 40 people at any one time. And then, of course, we've got stage 6 from 1 a.m. on the 1st of December, gatherings of up to 50 people, and, of course, the increase of the number of attendees permitted outside with those COVID-safe events, and unlimited dancing at weddings with the COVID-safe plan. So these are the issues that people have been raising with us, and because of the great response that Queenslanders have had, we have been able to act on the health advice. And of course, it does depend too on making sure that we don't have any community transmission. If we do have some community transmission on the roadmap, it says there what would happen. Gatherings would be reduced in homes, there'd be increased testing, wearing of masks, and of course Dr Young would take those steps that are necessary in relation to places with a disability and hospitals where PPE would have to be worn. So I hope this gives Queenslanders confidence to get out there and enjoy their state. We've been able
So get out there to enjoy the state, and of course stand-up drinks are allowed at the bar now. So 4 p.m. today, 5 p.m. there'll be people lining up at the bar to have that long-awaited stand-up drinks. As we know, for all the functions, if you were drinking, you had to find a seat. And that was the case. Well, today is a very special day. So what is today? Let's have a look.
2 अक्टूबर है आज।
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, today is the 2nd of October, and 2nd of October, Mahatma Gandhiji's Jayanti, and of course, together with that is Lal Bahadur Shastriji's. We should never forget that. So today, unlike every year, this year Gopia Queensland took part in the Gandhi's Jayanti celebration, but we're not the organizers of the event this year. As we know, every year it's been a function and event that's always been organized by Gopio Queensland. But nevertheless, Gopio Queensland did take part in the event, which took place at Roma Street Parklands earlier today, and hence today this late telecast of the events today. So let's take a very quick look. So that's our MP Theatre there, where we always have our India Day Fair, and this is where Mahatma Gandhi's statue is hosted. So let's quickly hear from our Honorary Counsel for India in Queensland, Mrs. Archana Singh ji. I do apologize upfront for the sound because they did have a problem with the sound, and with that sound they used a small Bluetooth speaker going through someone's mobile, and that was doubling up and it was echoing. But I hope that you can understand what our Honorary Counsel is going to say.
On which we meet, and I pay my respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Mr. Shyamdas, and all the wonderful dignitaries that have already been acknowledged. I acknowledge each and every one of you. And all my good friends that have come here to support us to celebrate this very momentous occasion. So as Mr. Shyamdas said, we celebrate the 151st birth anniversary of the great Mahatma Gandhi, of whom India can be justifiably proud, and to whom humanity all over the world will be eternally grateful. As a Messiah of hope, peace, humanity, and non-violence. Monia, as Mahatma Gandhi was affectionately called by his mother, growing up as a child, was extremely an ordinary and a very unexceptional little boy. And he showed no great promise at that age. And when he became a bit older and started practicing as a barrister, he continued to be very shy and often would get tongue-tied, even in the court, in the midst of an argument. So what is it, friends, that transformed this young, shy, very ordinary boy into this great Mahatma? That is an inspirational story. He often said, I have nothing new to teach the world. Truth and non-violence are as old as the hills. His genius friends lay in the fact that he used non-violence as an effective tool to bring about social and political change. He often said that we need to have morality and truth in our personal lives first, then our interpersonal lives, as well as in dealing with global affairs. So he used Satyagraha for the force of truth, and he brought about a moral realm into the sphere of physical struggle for independence, empowerment, and freedom. So we salute this great Mahatma, this great soul, who has been an inspiration to so many freedom struggles and civil rights struggles all over the world, and will continue to do so into the future. Have a very happy birth anniversary. We celebrate this great occasion and remember the great message that humanity is indivisible, and our happiness lies with the happiness of everyone around us.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. And I do apologize for the sound, as I said, because they were using a handheld speaker there. With that, we were capturing her voice plus also the voice that was coming in from there as well. So that's why that voice. So, well, right now, today, let's go into the interview for today. And today we are looking at some things that, because this is the month of mental health. So cost to workplace on mental health injuries up by 80% in the last 3 years. New research reveals 4 in 5 Australian employees want workplace to double down on mental health initiatives. Workers' compensation claims cost to mental health have increased by 80%, rising an average of 22% on an year since 2017. 80% of Australian employees are now calling on their employers to take action to address mental health in the workplace. Allianz has released a range of resources to help employers across all industries to create positive change when it comes to mental health in the workplace. So today we will be joined by Julie Mitchell, who is the General Manager of Workers' Compensation for Allianz Australia. Julie is the Chief General Manager of Workers' Compensation for Allianz. She joined Allianz in October 2000, and across a 19-year career at Allianz, she has held a number of key leadership roles, including General Manager for Victoria, and prior to that, she was the General Manager for New South Wales Treasury Managed Funds, TMF. Julie has led a number of highly successful businesses and has been instrumental in contributing to Allianz diversifying into the new areas of home care. So with that, let's welcome to Julie Mitchell. So Julie, welcome to this show.
Thank you, and thank you for speaking with me today.
And thank you very much, Julie. As we know, this is a issue on which we are all very worried about. Everyone's very concerned about this issue, and this is the mental health month, as we know, that we are all going through the whole month, and there's so many functions and events that have been arranged, and there will be so many things that are happening. So can you tell us a little bit about Allianz Future Thriving Workplace report?
Allianz has released its new Future Thriving Workplaces report, which sheds light on Australian workplace wellbeing. It explores the top causes of mental ill health in the workplace, the rising cost of psychological claims, the leading barriers employers and employees are facing, and what future mental health strategies may look like.
And that again is a great work, and that's the area that we really need to look at what the future would look like. So why is an improved mental health in employees very, very important at this point in time, in today's day and age?
By ensuring mentally healthy employees, we can positively impact individual employees' overall wellbeing. Mental health is also relevant across all industries, from corporate Australia through to farmers, those in construction and frontline workers. The priorities addressing each individual's wellbeing will lead to positive team and business outcomes.
So, the positive outcome is what's being looked at. And Julie, as you have mentioned, that it cuts across all industries and all fields, including, industries, merchants, farmers, and everyone like that. So can we expect to see more cases of mental illness as a result of COVID-19?
Allianz's data tells us the cost of mental health injury claims has been increasing. However, COVID-19 has been a real catalyst for change. Our latest research has revealed over half of managers state their organisation plans to implement mental health initiatives within the next 12 months, with half of managers admitting they have more responsibility for their employees' mental health at work.
Well, and so right now, can you tell us a little bit about when we look at all the advice that's been out there, so what can, people expect and where can they get that advice?
Allianz's data tells us the cost of mental health injury claims has been increasing. However, COVID-19 has been a real catalyst for change. Our latest research has revealed over half of managers state their organisation plans to implement mental health initiatives within the next 12 months, with half of managers admitting they have more responsibility for their employees' mental health at work.
And that is great news. So where can people go to get a little bit more information?
A good place to start is to look at mental health resources already available within the community. Get more information for how to address mental health via the Mental Health Hub located at the allianz.com.au website.
Julie, thank you so much for being on the show. As we know, this is the Mental Health Month, and where better place to start than your own workplace. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the chance to talk to you all.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Julie Mitchell, the General Manager of Workers' Compensation for Allianz. Right now, it's time for a commercial break. And with that, we'd like to welcome
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
Real estate is the world. Well, right now, for the news in brief, of course, recap on that news from Queensland, the Premier's announcement before we go into the rest of the news.
We've made it very clear that our borders have kept us safe. We are looking very closely at New South Wales, and if they do not have any community transmission for 28 days, we said very clearly that at the end of the month we review the plans, and that would mean there may be a possibility of opening up to New South Wales if there is no community transmission. But of course, their health experts are also concerned about some undetected community transmission at the moment. They're about to go into school holidays. So we will be watching that space very carefully.
And of course, based upon what happens in that space, and if they do not have any more community spread, the borders will open. Well, right now, what does the opposition say? The opposition urges government to implement the recommendations.
What this Royal Commission report does is show that the federal government didn't do enough, and it didn't do it soon enough. And it said that it didn't have a comprehensive, detailed plan to deal with COVID-19 outbreaks in residential aged care in Australia. So the government needs to implement these recommendations and do it very, very quickly. Essentially, the Royal Commission has said this needs to be done by 1 December. So the government has just 8 weeks to get this right and to fix it. What we've seen, of course, from the government is that in the past, with the Royal Commission's interim report, is that recommendation 1, a year later, is still not fully implemented. So I think that there's a lot of public concern about whether or not the Minister and the government are up to the task of fixing this within the time frame specified by the Royal Commission. Reading the report and listening to the Royal Commission's evidence, you listen to the families and the loved ones, and even some of the residents who have been impacted by what has happened with COVID-19 outbreaks in residential aged care, and it's just been tragic. But what we do know, of course, is that aged care was in crisis prior to the COVID-19 outbreaks, and what the outbreak has done is really shone a light on some of the frailties in the system. But the government has 6 recommendations. It's accepted those. It needs to get on and it needs to implement them, and implement them quickly. What we need to see in the budget next week is the government deal with both the interim report's recommendations and the Royal Commission's recommendations in terms of COVID-19 whilst we await the Royal Commission's final report in February next year that has the major reform in it. The Royal Commissioner said this needs to happen and needs to happen now. There are no more excuses for the government. It can no longer take months and months to do things. It needs to get in there and get it done.
Get in there and get it done. And this is the message that has been coming out loud and clear. Yesterday we were at a high profile lunch, and many of the big businesses and other ones, and this was a meeting with the government, and this is exactly what the industries were saying, that it need to cut out this bureaucracy, and there's so much time that's wasted. They say sometimes some approvals take years to come, and by the time approvals given, it becomes far too late. So that people need to work hard and go through the submissions, either say aye or nay, whichever way, but don't keep it in the loom for that long. So as she mentioned there, that they need to get on there and get on with the job. Well, the other news is a good news. Lydia Thorpe is going to become Victoria's first Indigenous federal senator. Let's take a look at that story.
I was born into a very strong activist family, well known in Victoria, the Thorpe family. I grew up in public housing. It was tough at times, and you had to survive. There was still a lot of violence from the police, particularly against Aboriginal people in our community. The flats were, and still are, a place that I hold close to my heart because it provided a safe place for me and my family.
Lydia Thorpe comes from a long line of strong Aboriginal women. Activism and politics is in her blood.
Well, she didn't have much choice because we were all protesting at that time. It was really the start of the NAIDOC marches. And so she was right in the middle of that mix, as our family was.
Since I was 5, I've been protesting.
So congratulations, Lydia. And of course, we have seen, yesterday we were talking to that actor, director, and in the music industry, and of course in the art field. So we have seen a rise of Indigenous people coming into these fields as well. That is wonderful to see, because in this social inclusion, it is very, very important that that is maintained. Well, right now, as we know, the Royal Commission into the coronavirus pandemic, and of course that commission is about to hand down its report. So let's take a look at that news.
Sarah, one of the first recommendations of this report is that there be improvements to visitation for residents of aged care, noting that isolation continues to have a terrible effect on people's physical, mental and emotional well-being. Do you think that inroads have been made into that yet, or is it still wanting?
Well, I think the mental health and wellbeing of aged care residents, should be front and centre of the conversation here. We're talking about a really vulnerable population of people who are already isolated and segregated from the general community, who have been through some of the most punitive lockdown conditions of anyone anywhere in the world. Many of them have been separated from their family for months. They haven't had visits from relatives who they rely on, not just for mental wellbeing, but also for care. And so, I think the report makes it very, very clear that there needs to be a humane access allowed for families to aged care residents to provide that love and that care. But there also needs to be access from allied health professionals and mental health professionals, because there are really, really grave concerns about the wellbeing, about the psychological wellbeing. We've heard reports, including in this report, of increased suicidal ideation in aged care, people suffering loneliness, isolation, depression, much more so than these are conditions that exist in aged care already, and these have only been exacerbated by, the COVID lockdown. So I think there needs to be a really humane solution, and I don't think that adequate inroads have been made just yet.
The report also finds that there is a clear need for a defined, consolidated and national aged care COVID-19 plan. A lot of people watching this program would perhaps find it unbelievable that there isn't already one.
Well, Lee, I find it completely unbelievable that there wasn't a national aged care plan for COVID outbreaks from the start. This should have happened at the beginning of the year. The report makes it abundantly clear that the CDNC did not have an aged care specialist advising, these guidelines that were sent out to providers, and we see the results of this in the total disorganisation and the fact that the guidelines did not have the operating environment of aged care in mind, because aged care homes are much more like homes than they are like hospitals, and they have a great deal of difficulty achieving infection control for that reason. And so I think what the report lays bare is the total lack of planning and the lack of clarity about roles and the lack of
planning and lot of clarity about the roles, and that is a serious allegation. So it is surprising that better policies and procedures were not in place. Well, right now another good news from our radio station is that from tomorrow night we introduce a brand new DJ. Well, he's not local, he's coming all the way from overseas, but is saying that Brisbane, are you ready? So he's getting ready to rock. And of course, all the way from South Africa. So, he's mixing the tracks and bringing the tracks, and it will all be streamed live from our radio station from this Saturday. So, launching BDM, the Bollywood dance music with the DJ Sepster. So, I hope that we can all tune into his program from tomorrow. It will be wonderful to see, as we know that the youngsters, and they like to listen to their tracks slightly mixed and the way that they like to do that. So he's bringing his mix the way he does it out in South Africa, where he's very, very famous. So he's bringing his mix here. So let's take a very quick listen to some of his music. So, ladies and gentlemen, introducing DJ Sepster, and watching tomorrow night. So watch out and tune into that and look at his style of the mixing. Well, the other thing that we want to talk about is our live cast tomorrow. So Asu Babu Memorial Tabla Concert, which takes place every year, and every year we support that wonderful event. But this year it will be live streamed, and none other than Brisbane Indian Times and Australian India, Chentex Multimedia will be looking after the live cast. So it will be on the same channel, but it will be live casted from the site itself. It will be our first time that we're doing a full concert live coverage from the venue, from the event. We have done that from our studios here. Well, someone has streamed back from, or some of our staff have been on the site streaming to the studio, and then we have streamed from here. Tomorrow is going to be the first ever live stream of a concert right from the venue. As we know, as due to COVID-19, we cannot allow many people to come into the venue. So under the current restrictions, Asu Babu Memorial Tabla Concert will go live streamed via Facebook and simultaneously to the YouTube channel of Australian Indian Radio. Tomorrow the link will be out there. We will forward that link as soon as the link is generated. So it will be a wonderful event, and we'd love to see you all joining in to those events. So, well, talking about events, let's take a very quick look at all the other events that are taking place over the weekend or in the. Don't forget that some of these events would be taking place as an online event only. There's 47 slides in that upcoming events, and we started off with few slides in the very beginning, but right now look at the number of the slides that have come on. So, people are taking advantage of our presentation. If you have any function or event that you would like us to include in this show, we'd definitely love to do that, and we are willing to partner with the community events functions that are taking place, for number one, for promotion, number two, for live coverage if the need be. So we'd like to talk to you about that. And if you have any marketing that needs to be done, Charita Deshpande, our marketing manager, would be quite happy to assist you with the appropriate package. And of course, we know that the October issue of Brisbane Indian Times are in these final stages, and we go to print next week, as our publication date is always the second Saturday of every month. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful having your company. It's always so good to see you, and all your feedback is much welcome, and of course all the comments, and I would also like to thank you for sharing it with friends, and of course I'd like to thank all the admins for allowing us to share on their groups and on their pages, which is very, very much appreciated, as the information that we have or that we present from here, as our disclaimer says in the very beginning, is all about community, what's happening in the community. And of course, it also looks at a lot of the functions and events that are taking place. And as per our disclaimer in the very beginning, a lot of these clips and events that are on site have been sourced from all publicly available domain, and sometimes there are a little bit of snippets which we do a live coverage of. But don't forget that this Saturday at the Asubabu Memorial Concert that we'll be doing, and of course launching Sepster and DJ all the way from South Africa. So Australia, are you ready for a South African DJ? Well, find out and let's see and give him the love that he deserves. So until tomorrow morning I come with the weekend edition, and we'd love to see you all there again. Until then, it's goodbye from me. Have a wonderful rest of Friday. Of course, looking forward to that extended weekend, the long weekend this weekend. Above all, remain safe.